Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Kristen Shelley Maddox, and I'm currently serving as the chair of your Shawnee Chamber of Board of Directors, and it's my honor to moderate today's forum. On behalf of the Johnson County Public Policy Council, a collaboration of all 10 local chambers of commerce, and particularly on behalf of today's hosts, the DeSoto, Lenexa, and Shawnee Chambers of Commerce, thank you for joining candidate event featuring Kansas House District 117. I'd like to begin by sharing the format for our forum this afternoon. That'll include a 2-minute opening statement by each of our candidates, then a moderated question and answer period during which the candidates will each have 1.5 minutes to respond, and then followed at the end by a 1-minute closing statement for each of you. The format, questions, and time limits will be the same for each candidate, and there will be no follow-up questions, formal rebuttal time, or audience participation. The candidate speaking order has been randomly determined with the candidates, and we will rotate that throughout the program. So next, we'll get into introductions. First, I'll introduce our candidates in alphabetical order. This district contains portions of rural Douglas and Johnson counties, as well as parts of DeSoto, Lenexa, and Shawnee. Our Democratic candidate, Bill Hammond, grew up in St. Joseph, Missouri, and earned a Bachelor of Education degree from Missouri Western State College and a Master's of Divinity from Midwestern Baptist Seminary. He served as a pastor in several Methodist churches in Missouri and Kansas. Bill has served as a business officer for 2 community colleges and retired after 13 years with the Dodge City School System. During that tenure, Bill worked with schools for fair funding. Bill has 2 grown daughters, and he and his wife Suzanne delight in spending time with their great niece. Next, our Republican candidate is Adam Turk. Adam is a 20-year military veteran, a small business owner, husband, and a father. He's lived in Johnson County for more than 15 years after growing up in rural Douglas County and serving our nation in several overseas deployments. Adam earned degrees in criminal justice administration and law enforcement and security. He is a small business owner and served as a security forces master sergeant in the Kansas Air National Guard. Adam is married to his college sweetheart and has 3 kids in the DeSoto School District. They are members of the Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Shawnee. With that, we will begin by asking each of you to give us your opening statements. You'll each have 2 minutes, and we'll start with you, Mr. Hammond.
Thank you. And I want to thank the Chambers for this opportunity to be here today, to come to know others in a more personal way, and have the opportunity, this is going to be taped, so it'll be available for folks, and that's great. It's wonderful. My name is Bill Hammond, and basically, I served a number of school districts in Kansas, and so one of the main reasons I'm running is at Dodge City, where I was for 14 years. We weren't getting constitutional funding for our kids, and so our district was one of the districts that actually sued the state for constitutional funding. So I went to meetings for basically 14 years about adequate school finance. I even testified at the 3-judge panel on school finance. So I fought for a long time that we would have good funding for our kids in public schools. That's coming up for renewal. And I want to be in the legislature because I want to keep that funding and make sure that we don't go backward in education. Children are our future, and the education needs to be world class. It needs to be the best we can do. Our kids deserve it. I also am very strong that I believe women make their better healthcare decisions than men. And I think we should recognize the bodily autonomy of women and recognize that right. And finally, I think that we can do better on health care for Kansas today by expanding Medicaid. So those are my 3 issues, and I guess that's my opening statement.
Thank you very much. Representative Turk.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Once again, I get to spend some time with you guys here at the Chamber. It's always a pleasure. I enjoy any opportunity to talk with you. It's home for me. I'm a small business owner. I feel very comfortable with you guys here. I'm Representative Adam Turk. This is my running for re-election. 2 years already under my belt. I feel like it was another tour of duty. It was a learning experience. It's like going back to college. You're re-engaging in all the concepts you learned in civics class back in school, and you get to really have a hands-on approach to it. It was an amazing experience, and I'm looking forward to building on that 2 more years. When I was first introduced to politics 2 years ago, I talked about prioritizing bringing a rational, realistic approach to policy making from the ground, right? I really pushed this Main Street concept, which was the guy on the street actually having a hand in the decisions that are in Topeka. This year, I'm going a little deeper. I'm pushing to continue lowering the cost of living for Kansas families. I'm wanting to continue what the progress I've made in corrections and juvenile justice and continue strengthening public safety to protect Kansans. And I'm still trying to empower small business owners and entrepreneurs here in Kansas. It's important that we keep our base of small business owners moving forward and growing here in Kansas. With 3 million people in Kansas, it's the core of it's the core of everything. Family, small business, hand in hand. Thanks.
Thank you. With that, we'll move into our question and answer portion of the forum. As we said before, you'll each have a minute and a half to respond. The speaking order will rotate with each question. And so our first question, we'll start with you, Representative Turk. What are your views on state tax policy, being as specific as you can?
A fair and balanced tax policy that supports economic growth and reduces the burden on the family is my number one. As a party, we will continue to move our tax code forward. We're trying to become more and more competitive regionally with states like Nebraska and Missouri and Oklahoma. We're always fighting with Oklahoma, trying to one-up each other. Believe it or not, they're the silent ones underneath us. We're always worried about Missouri, but it's Oklahoma that likes to take advantage of our economic weaknesses in places like aviation. So we're always trying to stay right there with them. I want to continue moving towards transparency and simplifying our tax code. Too often do we just overlook our taxes because they're too much to worry about. It's better just stick your head in the sand sometimes. If we simplify the tax code, we re-engage our community and our neighbors. Lowering incomes and sales and property taxes obviously attracts businesses. We want to keep doing that. We want to retain mature businesses and stimulate our economic action while funding our essential services and growing our overall tax base.
Thank you. Mr. Hammond, same question. What are your views on state tax policy, being as specific as you can?
One of the issues that I've heard as I've been canvassing people is property taxes. And property taxes are a problem, especially for retired people, because they may not have increasing incomes, but their property tax tends to go up every year. When the current rates of property tax were put into the Constitution, residential real estate only accounted for about a third of property taxes. The rest was either business, farm, ag, something else. Only about a third. Today, that's over 50%. We have given so many exemptions, which are good economic tools and economic development tools, but we've really raised the rates on residential property taxes. I think we need to take a hard look at that. I think that's hurting people. I think there's folks who cannot afford their property tax. So if we're going to do any more tax cuts, I think property tax should be at the forefront of those tax cuts that we would do. And we should look at all the exemptions and make sure that that's really what we want to accomplish, recognizing there's two sides. The exemptions may be very good. The effect on real estate taxes, not so good.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to K through 12 education funding. Mr. Hammond, we'll start with you. What are your views on K through 12 education funding and accessibility?
I love that question, and I love the fact that I have a minute and a half to put in 14 years of work on schools for fair funding in a minute and a half. I'll just say it takes money to run public schools today. I was a business officer. I balance the budget every year. But if you're going to hire good teachers, you got to pay them today. And we need to make sure that our teachers are well compensated. That costs money. So I believe in funding fully public education. The state of Kansas used to have in its laws that we were going to give our young people a world-class education.
The legislature took that out. I'd like to put that back in. I think our kids deserve a world-class education. I think we deserve to go forward with good funding so we can pay teachers, provide the kind of facilities we need to have, provide the kind of curriculum we need to have and the support. It costs money, and I think we need to fund it.
Thank you. Representative Turk, same question. What are your views on K-12 education funding and accessibility?
Appreciate that. I'm going to just hit something real quick. I loved everything that you just said about property taxes. Couldn't agree more. I wish the governor was on our side about it. I know for the next 2 years, our party and the Republicans are pushing that hardcore, so we need to maintain and we need to keep moving on property taxes. We need to encourage our municipalities to keep theirs under control as well. Now, as a father of 3 boys attending grade school here in District 232 and middle school now, they keep growing and I don't like it. Their success, the district's success, is my success. I'm right there in the middle of it. My kids are in the trenches with everybody else. So funding and resources for our school district, of course, they're symbiotic. I'm not going to remove my own child's chances at growth and success. We need to continue focusing on ensuring that they do have those resources and to continue focus on academic success for their students. I voted for a balanced K-12 budget last session, and I will do it again. I'm an advocate right there in the halls of the Capitol, and I will continue being so. Advocating for our teachers and in-classroom standards is my number one. Being on a House Appropriations Committee, I get oversight over all of that. And it is a very, very, very helpful place to be. And the next 2 years, I plan on continuing to be that voice in that room. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to what types of economic development policies do you support to encourage job growth and business expansion in Kansas? Representative Turk, we'll start with you.
Living in the small business world is difficult. I mean, there isn't a word to really describe it. Difficult, whatever comes after that. What we need to do is continue to cut taxes, reduce regulations that impact small business. Bureaucracy is today still my biggest hurdle to overcome when trying to expand or scale or move an operation. And I'm desperately trying to find ways where we can change that right there in the Capitol. When businesses are free to grow and innovate, they create jobs and they drive economic growth. I want to remind everybody that I supported the K-State 105 project. I also was hands-on with creating tax credits for National Guard members and their employers. National Guard members have an incredible amount of skills to apply to the job force. And hiring them is very difficult because they have training commitments. So helping employers with those burdens financially helps them hire the best among us. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Hammond, same question. What types of economic development policies do you support to encourage job growth and business expansion in Kansas?
I was a business officer at Highland Community College, which is in Doniphan County, one of the poorest counties in Kansas. And one of the things that the state legislature did, they had a program they called neighborhood revitalization. And basically what that program did, it allowed people to make enhancements to their property if they were in a certain area. And those enhancements received tax rebates basically on property tax. And it started off at 100%, but it stepped down 10% per year. So basically every year you start getting more. That made a significant difference in Doniphan County. We saw more economic development and growth in that period than we'd seen in years. And so that helped the long-term ability. When you add property on the property tax rolls, you can hold the tax levy same and still get the money you need to operate. So I was real impressed with neighborhood revitalization. Not the only program, but one that actually I saw work.
Thank you. All right, we will stay on the topic of business, and Mr. Hammond, this question will go first to you. What would you do to grow and develop the state's workforce?
I think the number one thing is education. And please understand, I have an undergrad degree, I have a master's degree, I went back to school and got a CPA, which was more educational training. But there's a lot of what we call great jobs today. And great jobs basically are defined as things that the automation, you have wonderful things that are automated, but there's a shortage of people really trained to work on them. So what we need to do is find the kind of technical education that may not be a 4-year degree, it may be a 1-year certificate, it may be a 2-year program. And we need to make sure those are available at reasonable cost so we can grow that. And that needs to be a partnership between the state, the colleges, universities, tech schools, but also we need business input. What employee training do they really need? And I think that could make a huge difference. If I was a businessman looking at state, I want to go someplace, it's not just people I want to make sure are available to work, but I want to make sure there's trained people who could do the job where I want to build a business. I think that's the number one thing.
Thank you. Representative Turk, same question. What would you do to grow and develop the state's workforce?
Well, this is, for me as a millennial, this is a loaded question because it starts all the way back to when I was in high school. I remember being told that if you don't go to college, you're a loser. And little did we know, when you were 18 years old, that when you were 40, you were going to be undergoing the largest demographic shift in American history. And then every single job available would be jobs that don't necessarily require a college degree. So you're strapped with college debt, and the type of jobs that are required don't need it, and those are the real paying jobs. I believe now that changing that culture within our education system is pivotal. But here today, we have a huge gap of available employees. We lost 100,000 Kansans between the beginning of the pandemic and about now. We need to look back to our tax code, create stability for our businesses, predictable stability, so that they'll be confident enough to expand here in our state, which will keep soldiers at Fort Riley, Fort Leavenworth, that are leaving the service right here in Kansas. Combine that with our vocational training expansion, places like Peasley Tech in Lawrence, Kansas, things like that. That needs to be enabled, and we must find ways to keep them expanding.
Thank you. Now, what are your views on the state's role with respect to ensuring success and affordability of post-secondary education? Representative Turk, we'll start with you on that question.
Well, the state has several tools for post-secondary education affordability. We fund scholarships, we've got grants, loan forgiveness programs for very tactical, very specific career fields that are high in demand, especially those in rural Kansas. We invest in our community colleges and our technical colleges, which we are doing now more than ever. And I think with that in mind, we just keep hitting the accelerator there, and then we trust that the institutions use that money that we provide to them at the state level appropriately.
Thank you. Mr. Hammond, same question. What are your views on the state's role with respect to ensuring access and affordability of post-secondary education?
Two bits of things. As a community college business officer, I basically stood watching students come through and signing loan documents. As an administrator of a school district in western Kansas trying to recruit teachers, and trying to recruit teachers who had mountains of student debt was very difficult. I think we need to have an aspirational goal of K through job ready, where there's little or no debt to the student. That will not happen overnight. It will not happen in one session. But I think that should be the aspirational goal. If you're in Kansas, we're going to get you educated, ready for job ready, And you might have a little bit of student loans, but not these massive student loans that we're seeing today. That should be what we're looking for.
Thank you. Moving on then, there has been a lot of discussion about foreign land ownership and or leasing, as well as purchasing equipment containing foreign manufactured parts. Mr. Hammond, what factors do you consider when attempting to balance national security concerns against free enterprise and private property rights?
I think it's a very tough situation to deal with. We had one thing where we were putting in a new HVAC system. We had a grant to do this in a school district, and the HVAC system that was recommended by the engineers was only manufactured overseas. That's a tough one. Do you want to go with what's considered the best and the most efficient, the most cost-effective? And yet we had something from overseas which didn't meet the grant requirement, and it had to get worked out. It's really a problem in today working through those issues. There are a lot of parts that are just not available U.S. made. I want to support U.S. manufacturers. I want to support U.S. jobs. I want to support U.S. unions. I might mention that. This seems like a good time. I am endorsed by several unions because I think they are the hope of the middle class today. And I want to do all those things, but I also don't want it to more or less cut off my nose to spite my face, because there are some things that are really hard to find manufactured in America today, and that's sad. And I'm hopeful that once we move toward bringing some of the chip manufacturers to this country and other things that seems to be a national priority, hopefully that will change over the next few years.
Thank you. Representative Turk, same question. What factors do you consider when attempting to balance national security concerns against free enterprise and private property rights?
Now, reducing this to 2 minutes is not good.
Well, it's only a minute and a half, so.
Balancing free enterprise and the military side of it all requires experience from both angles of it. I mean, you're picking up a triple-ended barbell here. You have to have trust in the process, but there needs to be a very transparent process. Working in collaboration with the federal government is never clean, so it's going to be up to us to create a simple process to do it. The government has one, and we utilize it. However, our side of it needs to be hashed out. Last session, we started that conversation. This next session, we're going to put a cap on it, but it does require experience from both the private sector and the military. Now, we are focusing on bringing back manufacturing jobs, medical equipment, pharmaceuticals, etc. But again, tax policy needs to change to make that an attractive shift for business. If it's easier to build it over, to make it overseas, they're going to do it because, you know, that's business. So if we make the process easy over here and it's more attractive to move here, then we don't have to worry about foreign adversaries like China. But that's a long wish. Until then, we need to be very acute. Foreign adversaries like China are our main approach, our main target, and we need to limit what they do here, plain and simple. They make it very clear that they don't like us, and we need to listen to them.
Thank you. Moving on then to healthcare. Representative Turk, we'll start with you. What are your views on healthcare policy and Medicaid expansion?
Of all the questions, I wish I went second on this one. Medicaid is for Kansans that are elderly, for the children, for disabled and pregnant mothers, period. We need to focus on increasing reimbursement rates where it makes sense without breaking federal laws, because it's very nuanced. I just said earlier that working with the federal government is never clean. So we need to make sure we do not break federal laws and regulations that will put their reimbursement, their part of it, at risk. So often we like to just fall prey to the bleeding heart and throw money at it, but oftentimes that's not the wise decision. Tactically raising reimbursement rates will bring in more providers that are willing to accept Medicaid, which is the real problem. There are not enough providers accepting Medicaid. Until rates become competitive, expanding Medicaid for able-bodied people is irresponsible and unsafe. Again, I support healthcare policy that increases access and affordability while ensuring quality care. And there are thousands of Kansas Kansans in need already on our wait lists that we want to get off of our wait lists, and expanding access is how we do it. Last year, I voted to provide the maximum amount that we could to reduce the IDD waiver wait list without breaching federal regulations and putting that in jeopardy. If we get another opportunity next year, I'll do it again.
Thank you. Mr. Hammond, what are your views on healthcare policy and Medicaid expansion?
I'm different than my colleague over here. Basically, I served on a federally qualified health center in western Kansas, and I saw firsthand the needs of people who didn't have health insurance. And it wasn't necessarily people who weren't working. It might be somebody who's working part-time jobs, but they didn't qualify within their employers for health insurance. The two leading causes of poverty in the United States today are health cost and divorce. Don't know what we can do about divorce. If I could figure that one out, I'd be smart and you'd all be, But healthcare costs, we can make a difference for people. We need to expand Medicaid expansion because there's over 100,000 people who would get health care. And they would get health care so at the dinner table they're not having to discuss, do we have our health care met? Do we buy food? Or do we pay the rent? That's a discussion too many people in Kansas are having today. And it's an unnecessary discussion. If you really want to look at healthcare policy, I think it's the Kansas Health Institute. There's a foundation, and I went and talked to them, and it's unbelievable when you sit back and look at the millions and millions of dollars Kansas has basically given away to other states that could be spent right here in Kansas on our people. I don't understand that.
Thank you. For our last question, I'd like to talk a little bit about local control. Mr. Hammond, we'll start with you. How control over decision-making is divided among the state legislature and local governments, including our local school boards, on issues such as taxation, economic development, and education has been a matter of debate. What are your views on local control?
I think it's amazing that we like to talk, we want local control, we want government closest to the people, and then when the city of Lawrence comes with the thing where we don't want plastic bags handed out because of certain issues, the state legislature just can't wait to come in and jump in and say, you got the wrong answer. If we want local control, we need to let the local governments have local control. As long as school board, let's talk about that just a minute. I used to do orientation for school boards, newly elected people. And as I would say, you can make a lot of decisions as a school board member. You might even get to pick the color we paint the buildings, unless of course that color is going to set people off who have certain disabilities. And then that's not going to be allowed because you're violating their rights. There's a tremendous amount of regulation on schools already, but we still believe in some local control, and we believe that the local district should be contracted with teachers and other groups and have that. I think local control is a good thing. I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Representative Turk, same questions. What are your views on local control?
I'm a bottom-up solutions guy. That's my perspective. Be it working in Uncle Sam teaches you a lot of things. A lot of them probably not applicable to regular everyday life, but one of them is force structure. So the lowest level of government is the one that is closest to the people. They're your neighbors, your friends, the bartender down the street, or your librarian. So those are the people that you want to go to first for the closest issues to their hearts, okay? So of course I'm all about the lowest level making the most important decisions. But of course we have a layered government. So if for whatever reason an issue cannot be accomplished, whether it's its scale or its price tag or whatever, if it can't be accomplished at the lowest level, that's why we have another level, and it's escalated up, and then escalated up if necessary. The way we have it all set up right now is beautiful. It's a wonderful system, and we should trust the system, and I think we do. Mr. Hammond here brought up the plastic bag issue. It's a perfect example. It was escalated up to the state. The state had an opinion on it, but they didn't do anything on it. It didn't belong there, so it went away. It's a perfect example of how our system works right now.
Thank you very much. Well, now it's time to move on to our closing statements. As we told you earlier, we'll have 1 minute each to present your closing statements, given in the reverse order of our opening statements. Please be sure to try and highlight the matters that distinguish you most from your opponent. And so, Representative Turk, we'll start with you.
The last 2 years in the legislature has taught me that real-time, real-life context is the best value added to any discussion under any dome, whether it's here, Washington, or wherever. Having watched the towers fall from my senior history class, knowing that, oh, now I'm about to go to war, serving in foreign battlefields 7,000 miles away, experiencing the largest college tuition hike in American history, to watching the housing crash of 2008, the government shutdowns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and into COVID, all within my lifetime has given me a very, very acute, very specific hands-on context for decision-making in Topeka. Reflecting on these life experiences has given me that prism to look through every time we're discussing policy and every time we're writing laws. It's very, very helpful. It is the reason why I got into government. I don't know anything that separates between me and Mr. Hammond, but I know that no one will fight harder for your family than I will, because I'm fighting for mine too. And you can take that one to the bank.
Thank you. Mr. Hammond, your closing remarks.
I think we have a little difference in the role of government. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's a bad thing to have, it's just the reality. I see Medicaid expansions helping over 100,000 Kansans get health insurance, keeping them healthy, hopefully keeping sick people off the street, out of our grocery stores, out of our walkways. I see schools that needed funding, and I fought that battle for over 10 years. I testified at the trial. I understand school funding. I understand those who are fighting against good school funding. And I'll continue to fight for good school funding because I think our kids are our future. And finally, I trust women. I trust women to make their own decisions. And I trust the American people to make good decisions. And I would ask each and every person listening for your vote this November. I will go to Topeka and fight for you. And I want to say that to those people who are members of unions, I've had several endorsements. I will fight for unions in this state. And we haven't mentioned it, but I think we ought to look at prevailing wage. We don't have that in Kansas. We need prevailing wage, at least at the local level in Kansas. Thank you for hosting this. Appreciate it. And thank you, sir.
Yeah, pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you to both of you. That concludes our forum for House District 117. Let's thank our candidates for participating today. On behalf of the DeSoto, Lenexa, and Shawnee, and all of the Johnson County Public Policy Council members, thank you for taking advantage of this important opportunity to learn about the candidates. For more information about the candidates, videos of candidate forums, and advanced voting details, you can visit www.votejoco.com. And please share this voter resource with your colleagues, your family, and your friends. Thank you.